Hi guys, back at it, day 3. So we were working on this law of sines the last 2 days, and you can see for the most part it's pretty easy to work with. And we said that, these are the situations you can work with when we have two angles and a side. So it could be ASA where the side's included or AAS where the side's not included. Anytime we have two angles and a side, it works. And then if we have two sides and a non-included angle, it works. And then we say, okay, well, what if we have other situations? Okay, well, if we have other situations, then hopefully we can use something called the law of cosines. Okay, so the law of cosines is a little bit different, a little bit more difficult. And this right here is what the law of cosines is word for word, but it's a pattern, okay, that you want to remember. The pattern is important. If you remember the pattern, then it's real easy to do. Okay, so for instance, if I take this first one, notice that little a, little b, and little c are the sides. And notice that little a is opposite angle A, little b is opposite angle B, and little c is opposite angle C. So if we start with side A, little a, okay, so we say little a squared is equal to the sum of the other two sides squared. So little b plus little c squared minus 2 times these two sides, b and c, okay, times the cosine of the angle that's opposite little a. So that has to be the cosine of the angle that's opposite where we started. Okay, this guy has the same pattern. So if we start with little b squared, okay, right here, it's the sum of the squares of the other two sides, little a squared plus little c squared, minus 2 times those same two sides, a and c, okay, times the cosine of the angle that's opposite where we started with. Okay, so if we start with little b squared, the angle opposite is angle B. Okay, so same pattern. Now same thing here. If we start with little c squared, okay, it's going to be the sum of the squares of the other two sides. So a squared plus b squared minus 2 times those other two sides, a and b, right here, okay, times the cosine of the angle that's opposite where we started. So that'd be the cosine of angle C. So it's a pattern that you have to remember. Okay, and if you can remember the pattern, then it's not hard to work with. But a lot of times when students first start working with law of cosines, they have to continue to go back to this guy. Okay, so we say, okay, like, when can we use this? Okay, well, we can use the law of cosines if we have SAS. Okay, so you have two sides and the included angle. Okay, now remember, that's different from two sides and a non-included angle. Okay, if we have SSA, two sides and a non-included angle, we use law of sines. Okay, if we have SAS, law of sines won't work. Okay, we have to use law of cosines. And then if you have all three sides, but you know nothing about the angle. So if you have SSS, okay, you know all three sides, and all we have to do is find the three angles, you have to use the law of cosines. Okay, now I'll show you why the law of sines doesn't work for SAS. Okay, and it'll be a similar reason why it doesn't work for SSS. Okay, so if we take a look right here and you say, okay, I'm going to try to apply the law of sines. Okay, and so you say, okay, well, the sine of angle A over the length of the side opposite, so that would be the sine of angle A, which we don't know, over the length of the side opposite over here, 30, equals the sine of angle B over the length of the side opposite angle B, which would be 16, equals the sine of angle C, which I know is 49 degrees, over the length of the side opposite that which I don't know, AB. And if you look at these three ratios, notice that we don't have a cornerstone ratio. We don't have that ratio where we know both the numerator and the denominator. Here we have an unknown, we don't know angle A. Here we have an unknown, we don't know angle B. And here we have an unknown, we don't know what the length of side AB is. and there's no way to find angle A or angle B using the triangle sum theorem, okay, because we only know one angle, okay, and this is not a right triangle, so I can't use the Pythagorean theorem to find AB, so we're stuck. Law of sines does not work, okay, when you have this SAS, okay, and the same thing happens with SSS. The law of sines just will not work, okay, so we have to use the law of cosines, okay, to do these. Okay, all right, so let's see, we take a look here, and I know what I would start with. I would start with the unknown side, right here, okay, I would start with that. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find this guy right here, this unknown side length. Okay, so let's see. We use that pattern. So we start here and we say, okay, that's AB. So AB squared equals the sum of the squares of the other two sides. So it'd be 30 squared plus 16 squared. Minus 2 times the other two sides. So 2 times 30 times 16 times the cosine of the angle that's opposite where I started. So that'd be the cosine of angle C, which we know is 49 degrees. Okay, right there. Okay, so now I've just got to solve for that. Okay, so let's see. How about we do this? Now we know we're going to get an irrational answer. We know that because the cosine of 49 is irrational. Okay, so why don't we do some simplifying first? So I'm going to take this 30 squared plus 16 squared, and I'm just going to use my calculator. I go 30 squared plus 16 squared, and I get 1,156. Minus. Now we multiply those guys together. So we go 2 times 30 times 16. Okay, and we get 960 times the cosine of 49 pesos. Okay, now remember this is AB squared. I need AB. Okay, so let's just take the square root. Now obviously I would have 2 square roots, but I don't want a negative square root because what I'm looking for is a side length, so it'd just be the positive square root. And I'm going to punch this whole thing into my calculator. So when I punch in the square root, that comes up. And so we go 1156 minus 960 times the cosine, and that'll pop up. So I put 49, second parenthesis to go along with that one, and then a second parenthesis to go along with this guy, and we just punch it into our calculator. Okay, so we go second square root, 1156 minus 960 times cosine of 49, double parenthesis, and hit enter. And you get 22.94 when you round things off to the nearest hundredth. So this guy is 22.94, okay, units. Okay, so we have our missing side. Now we have to go after the two angles. Okay, so it's not going to matter which one you do first, angle A or angle B. It's not going to make any difference. I'm going to go after angle A. Okay, all right, so if I'm going to go after angle A, okay, and I'm going to follow this pattern, I have to start with the side opposite that. So that would be 30 squared. So we get 30 squared equals the sum of the squares of the other two sides. So that'd be 16 squared plus 22.94 squared minus 2 times both of these other two sides. So 2 times 16 times 22.94 times the cosine. Okay, I started with the 30, so it'd be cosine of angle A. Okay, so notice I don't know angle A, and I know the cosine of angle A. So if I'm looking for an angle measure, we're going to have to use inverse trig when it gets down to it. Okay, so let's see, 30 squared is 900. Okay, I'm going to punch this into my calculator, and I'm not going to round anything off, okay, until the very end. So 16 squared plus 22.94 squared. Okay, and again, I'm not going to round anything off okay, I get 782. My fault, guys. 782.2436 minus. Now I'm going to punch this in to my calculator. Okay, so we get 2 times 16 times 22.94. And I get 734.08 times the cosine of angle A. Okay, now I have to isolate cosine of angle A. Okay, so the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract this from both sides. Okay, so I go 900 minus 782.2436, and I get 117.7564 equals, notice this, I have that negative sign, don't lose that negative sign, negative 734.08 cosine of angle A. All right, so now I'm going to have to divide both sides by this negative 734.08. Okay, so I would get 117.7564 divided by negative 734.08. Now, the reason I'm not going to punch it into the calculator right now is because I don't know what's going to happen. It could be some long string of numbers, and I don't want to round anything off. Okay, and this would be equal to the cosine of angle A. Well, if that's the case, using inverse trig, this would mean the measure of angle A equals cosine inverse of this whole ratio. Okay, 117.7564 divided by negative 734.08, and so I have to punch that in. Okay, so we want to punch that in, and obviously it's just numbers, so I don't have to worry so much about separating things, so we should be in good shape. So I go second, cosine inverse. Okay, parenthesis comes up, 117.7564 divided by, and don't forget that negative right there, negative 734.08, parenthesis, and I hit enter. And it comes out to be 99.23, okay, degrees. Okay, so that means this guy right here is 99.23 pesos. Okay, now some people would say, okay, well, just go ahead and use the triangle sum theorem now to find angle B. So I could go 180 minus the 49 and minus this. Now here's the problem with that. If you made a mistake here, this is going to be wrong and you're not going to know it. Okay, so if I were you, I would use the law of cosines to find angle B and then check, okay, to make sure your three angle measures add up to 180 or come very, very close. Okay, so we're gonna use the law of cosines to find angle B. Okay, so we're gonna find a missing angle measure, so it's gonna be very similar to this down here. Okay, so let's see, my third guy. Okay, and I'm looking for the measure of angle B. So I have to start with the side opposite, so 16 squared equals the sum of the squares of the other two sides. So that'd be 30 squared plus 22.94 squared minus 2 times both of these sides. So 2 times 30, okay, times 22.94 times the cosine of the angle opposite of where I started. And notice I'm starting with 16, so it'll be cosine of angle B. Okay, so once we have it set up, it's going to be just like this guy here. So I'm going to take the very same process of getting through that. Okay, so let's see. 16 squared I know is 256. All right, now I'm gonna punch this into the calculator, and I'm not gonna round anything off because I don't want to do any rounding until the end. Okay, so we go 30 squared plus 22.94 squared, and I am getting 1426, 1426.2436, 2436 minus. Again, I'm going to punch this in. I'm not going to round anything off because I don't want to round off until the end. So we go 2 times 30 times 22.94. And I'm getting 1376 from this guy. 1376.4 in the cosine of angle B. Okay, so now I have to isolate this cosine of angle B. So I've got to subtract this guy from both sides. Okay, so I'm going to go 256 minus 1426.2436. And obviously I'm going to get something that's negative. I get negative 1170.2436. And again, I'm not rounding anything off until the end. Now don't forget the negative sign here. Okay, and we'll bring this guy down. 1376.4 cosine of angle B. Okay, now I'm going to have to divide both sides by this coefficient here. Okay, so I get negative 1170.2436 divided by negative this guy right here, 1376.4. And that's going to be equal to the cosine of angle B. Okay, now, in this case, notice we're both, the numerator and denominator are both negative. So they cancel each other out. You could drop them if you want, or you could leave them both there. Okay, but either you have to drop both of them or keep them both there. It was different down here, because on this one, notice only one of them's negative. Okay, so a positive divided by a negative is a negative, so you got to hold on to that guy. Okay, so right here, I know the cosine of angle B is equal to this, so that means the measure of angle B would be cosine inverse of that guy. So the measure of angle B is cosine inverse of this ratio. Now I'm going to drop the two negative signs because I know I don't need them. So 1170.2436 all divided by 1376.4. And notice how I haven't rounded anything off. I'll round off at the very end. And so we punch that in. All right, so second cosine inverse. 1170.2436. Okay, got it. Divided by 1376.4, parenthesis, and hit enter. And it comes out, and remember that's an angle measure, comes out to be 31.76 pesos. Okay, 31.76 pesos. And then we can check. Okay, you take your angle measures, you add them all up and see if it works out. So 31.76 plus 99.23 plus 49. Add those guys. So let's see, 31.76 plus 99.23 plus 49, and that comes out to 179.99 pesos. So notice we're only off by 1/100th of a degree, and that's acceptable. Okay, but understand that if you would have made a mistake here, and then you would have just went 180 minus this to get this guy, if you made a mistake here, that's going to be wrong, and it's going to throw everything off in the end. And so that's why we don't use the triangle sum theorem in this situation unless we're forced to. Okay, let's try one more of those guys. All right, let's see this guy. Okay, and notice this is really close to being a 90-degree angle, but it's not, okay? So let's see, again, I'm gonna start with the missing side length, okay, the very first thing. Okay, so I start with this guy, xy squared. So xy squared equals the sum of the squares of the other two sides. So that'd be 5.4 squared plus 11.5 squared minus 2 times these two sides. So 2 times 5.4, okay, times 11.5 times the cosine of the angle that's opposite where I started. So I started with xy over here on the left, so it has to be the cosine of angle z. And I know what angle z is, 89 pesos. Okay, so let's see, we have xy squared equals, okay, I'm going to do this, and again, I'm not going to round anything off, so 5.4 squared plus 11.5 squared, and I get 161.41. 161.41, okay, minus 2 times 5.4 times 11.5, so 2 times 5.4 times 11.5, and I get 124.2. 124.2 cosine of 89 degrees. Okay, so I need xy. So let's just take the square root. Okay, and remember, I would have a positive negative square root, but I don't want the negative one because I'm looking for a side length, so it has to be positive. All right, so square root of, that'll pop up. 161.41 minus 124.2 times the cosine of 89 pesos. And I just punch that into my calculator. Okay, so let's see. Second, square root, 161.41 minus 124.2 times the cosine of 89 pesos. And I am getting approximately 12.62. So this guy right here is 12.62 units. Okay, and notice how this is really close to being a right triangle. So this is really close to being a hypotenuse, and notice the hypotenuse is the largest of the three sides, which we should get. Okay, so far I feel pretty good about it. All right, I have to go either after x or y. Doesn't make any difference. I'm going to go after x. Okay, so let's see. All right, so I start with the side opposite x, 11.5. So we get 11.5 squared equals the sum of the squares of the other two sides. So that would be 5.4 squared plus 12.62 squared minus 2 times those other two sides. So 2 times 5.4 times 12.62 times the cosine of the angle opposite of where I started. And I started 11.5, so cosine of angle x, and that's what we're looking for. Okay, so again, the angle is the unknown, so we're going to have to use inverse trig down towards the end. So I'm just going to simplify all this stuff. All right, so let's go 11.5 squared. And I'm not rounding anything off. I get 132.25 equals. All right, I'm going to take care of these guys. Okay, so I go 5.4 squared plus 12.62 squared. And again, I'm not going to round anything off. I get 188.4244. 4244. Okay, minus. Okay, now I'm going to multiply these together. Okay, 2 times 5.4 times 12.62. Okay, and I get 136.296. Okay, times the cosine of angle x. Okay, so let's see. I've got to isolate cosine of angle x, so I've got to subtract this guy from both sides. Okay, so I go 132.25 minus 188.4244, and it's going to be negative. I get a negative 56.1 .1744 equals, don't forget this negative sign, negative 136.296 cosine of angle x. So now I got to divide both sides, okay, by this negative 136.296. So I go at a negative 56.1744 divided by this guy, negative 136.296. So that equals the cosine of angle x. Okay, so now I got to use cosine inverse to get the measure of angle x. Okay, so the measure of angle x will be cosine inverse of this whole ratio. And once again, notice that they're both negative, and a negative divided by negative is positive, so they cancel each other out. Now, if I only had one negative sign, it wouldn't cancel out, but I got both the numerator and denominator both negative, so I'll just drop them. So 56.1744 divided by 136.296. And we punch that whole thing into our calculator. Okay, so let's see. Second, cosine inverse, 56.1744 divided by 136.296, and hit enter. And when I round it off, I'm getting approximately 65. My fault. 65.66. Okay, so that's the measure of angle x. 65.66 pesos. All right, now once again, if you apply the triangle sum theorem to get angle y, and you go 180 minus the 89 minus the 65.66, there's no guarantee that it'll work, because if you made a mistake here, then the measure of angle y is going to be wrong as well. Okay, so I'm going to use the law of cosines to find the measure of angle y. Okay, so that'll be our third part. Okay, so I'm finding the measure of angle y, so I have to start with the side opposite, this 5.4. So I say 5.4 squared equals the sum of the squares of the other two sides. So that would be 11.5 squared plus the 12.62 squared, minus 2 times these other two sides. So 2 times 11.5 times 12.62 times the cosine of the angle opposite from where I started. So if I started with 5.4, it would be the cosine of angle y, and that's what we're looking for. Okay, so we got things set up right. All right, so now it's just nothing but calculator work. So I start here, 5.4 squared, and I get 29.16. 29.16 equals. Now I'll punch this into my calculator. All right, 11.5 squared plus 12.62 squared. And again, I'm not going to round anything off until the very end. So this one I get 291.5144. Okay, now I'm going to punch this into my calculator right there. Okay, so 2 times 11.5 times 12.62. Okay, and I'm getting 290.26 times the cosine of angle y. Okay, so let's see. What am I going to have to do? I got to get cosine of angle y isolated, so I got to subtract this guy from both sides. Okay, so I go 29.16 minus 291.5144. And obviously it's going to be negative. I get a negative 262.3544 equals. Now remember, don't forget this negative sign. A negative 290.26 cosine of angle y. So I'm going to have to divide both sides by this negative 290.26. So I get a negative 262.3544. divided by a negative 290.26 equals the cosine of angle y. Okay, so if that's the case, that means the measure of angle y has to be cosine inverse of this ratio. Okay, so the measure of angle y equals cosine inverse. And once again, notice a negative divided by a negative is a positive, so you can drop the two negative signs. Okay, 262.3544 divided by 290.26. And I punch that into my calculator and see what I get. Okay, so let's see. We go second cosine inverse 262.3544 divided by 290.26 and hit enter. And it's coming out, when I round it off, to be 25.33 pesos. So that means this guy, if I did things right, is 25.33 pesos. Okay, and so let's see, let's check. Okay, so, let's take our 89 degrees plus the 65.66 plus this 25.33. And let's see what happens here. Okay, so I have 89 plus 65.66 plus 25.33, and I get 179.99. Okay, and notice I'm only 1/100th of a degree off. So I'm in good shape here. Okay? All right, so you can see how the law of cosines is a little busier, okay, than the law of sines, and that's the case every year. I mean, you can see it. I mean, there's a little bit more work to do, okay, and so you got to be careful with things. And year in and year out, the law of sines is usually a lot easier on the students. And the law of cosines, it gets easier the more you practice with it. It just takes some time. So we'll take up and we'll do a couple more of those kind of problems tomorrow. You guys be safe out there, and I miss you a whole bunch.